everyone, and welcome to the Riverfront, the world's most dangerous podcast. I'm your host, Chad Dotson. With me this week, we'll go around the horn here. Seth Shaner. How you doing today, Seth?
Doing great, Chad. Great to talk with you as always.
My buddy Bill Lack is back with us. Bill, how we doing?
Doing great, man.
And also with us is the best author in all of Reds land. Author of a new revised, updated edition of The Big 50, the many moments that made the Cincinnati Reds. It's Chris Garber. How are we, Chris?
What's up, fellas?
All right. This is a sort of a blast from the past episode, and I guess we'll just go ahead and talk about the big news here, essentially, which is that this is a little bit of a passing of the torch episode of the Riverfront, and we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the Riverfront in a bit. But this thing started in 2007, which is just crazy to believe. And we'll talk about why it got started and what it was like in those early days. But here we are, 2025. And obviously, the Riverfront has been my baby for a while, but back when it was Red Leg Nation Radio. And I'm happy that it's going to keep going. But as you have noticed, I've been a little bit absent lately. My brother Nate, he's been a little absent lately, and we'll explain a little bit more about why that is. But this is, I hope not my last episode, but I'm officially sort of passing the torch, handing off the reins of the Riverfront to Seth Shaner. And again, I'm happy to talk about the reasons why, and I think we should talk about the reasons why. But the community that we've built up here has just been phenomenal, and I'm thrilled, Seth, that you're going to keep this thing going. So, anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, it's kind of a heavy heart that I do that, because I really wish that I could go back in time and have you still running things, and even being able to join you this past year plus has been great. But this show for me has been a part of my life since 2017. And again, so I wasn't around in 2007 listening as far as that goes, but some folks were here before I was, but it just, to me, when you have a podcast that you really relate to, and then especially, over the years that you added viewer mail, even though it was audio only.
That dumb joke, by the way, lasted. Well, it lasted until we actually got video. So until we actually got viewers, but I don't know why that joke entertained me so much.
You'd shake the paper and do your whole thing. Yeah. No, so like that when you introduced that to the show, it allowed me to kind of get to know other folks, and we already through the show, and then through things like at the time Twitter, it was great to get to know other folks, and it just, to me, when we had the conversation a few weeks ago, it was just really tough for me to see the Riverfront go if that was the way it was going to happen. And then you had the Patreon group, and I used Joey Gaditza as the basis, but it could be any of us. There's a litmus test there with Joey being from, what would you always say, Canada.
Oh, yeah.
He said some things about being a Reds fan from so far away, and even I talked to Chris about it, and Chris lived in Southern California for a time, and you just have to have that connection. And the Riverfront and the Patreon group has been great for people like Joey, but all of us to kind of, be connected to each other. And so I want to keep doing shows. That's another thing. So I wanted to keep the platform alive there. And so we'll get into some of the changes that might happen, especially initially as we kind of hit the ground running, so to speak. But it just came down to, it was a decision that had to be made. I had to think about it, obviously, but I really came down to, hey, I want to keep this going. And you know what? I mean, listen, 6 months from now, if I'm having to spend a bunch of my own money to keep this afloat, like I know you did for so long, maybe I'll have to rethink things. But for right now, as far as things look, I think we can make this happen and make it go pretty well, hopefully into the future with as many cameo appearances from you as possible.
Well, and a couple things about that. I certainly appreciate that. The whole genesis behind Red Leg Nation initially, really, and you mentioned the listserv, but Bill Lack's a Reds listserv back in the mid '90s. sort of triggered in me something about, because I was in Virginia at the time, obviously. Well, I am at this time as well. But this idea of being able to sort of maintain this fandom, that's why I named Red Leg Nation Red Leg Nation. I wanted it to be a place for fans from everywhere, because there were Reds fans. Well, not as many nowadays everywhere else, but at the time, the Reds were a national brand for a long time. And so that was the genesis behind it. And then you mentioned the viewer mail. That was actually the moment when this podcast actually turned into more of a community, because I was recording these things, and Bill and Chris were coming on with me, and Jason Linden back in the day was coming on with me, and we were sort of sending these things out in the void, and had no idea who was listening, really, or if anyone was listening. We kind of presumed it was just so we could get together and talk about the Reds. And so we started doing that viewer mail because it was the off season and we needed something to talk about. And then all of a sudden it looks, oh wait, we have this community that keeps showing up. And so in the Slack channel and all that. So I'm very happy that can keep going. And we can go into the changes now or later if you want, whatever changes there might be. But this thing, it came to a point where I'll just tell you, I brought Nate on to help me, and I really wish Nate could be here tonight. Nate wanted to be here tonight, but Nate, first of all, I mean, he has a brand new daughter that's taking up a lot of time, and he just was named COO of his company, and he didn't want to give this thing up either, but it just, with a brand new baby and a new job, and they just moved to a new town, and his wife got a new position, it just was more than he could handle. For me, a couple years ago, I got a new sort of challenging professional position that's caused me to just have to step away because I'm working 24/7, and I love the job, but something had to go. And so, and I will say here that maybe at some point those impediments to me being around are not going to be there. But as for now, we were this close to this thing basically just having to shut up shop, and that's where Nate and I were. And I really appreciate and I appreciate Tim Daniels. Certainly, I want to mention him because he's helped keep this thing afloat in the time that Nate and I have been a little absent. But then Seth stepped up to the plate and said, there's something worth keeping going here with this community. And so Seth, I do appreciate your willingness to take this on, and I'm hopeful that we can keep this community alive.
That's the goal, and I really look forward to it. I wanted to actually, something you said reminded me. Like I said, around 2017 is when I started listening, and I don't know how about you guys, but I listen to podcasts when I'm mowing grass, when I'm doing yard work, when I'm sometimes in the shower. I know Branch Brown was talking about being in the shower, listening to podcasts, and Jeff Carr said, "Wait a minute, you listen to me while you're naked?" That's but anyway. There's times when I listen to podcasts, I have a vivid memory of doing yard work, spreading some mulch around, and my college roommate arrived from Dayton, and we were going to take off the next morning to go to Philadelphia to see the Reds play the Phillies back in 2017. And you and Jason Linden did an episode about how good Joey Votto actually was, and even at that moment. And I knew he was my favorite player. My son's named Joey. I've been over it before. But that episode, I played it over in the car the next day for my buddy. And I'm like, listen, this is how good Joey Votto is. And you guys spelled it out so well. And I think we've got some viewer mail later. There's some guys that'll make some similar comments. Like that was the big pull for me it was, you guys are fans too, but you're smart. And that's what we hope to be. Just this week, I talked with Skylar Webker, who's been in the Patreon, and he's been a part. He does the Cavs podcast with Tim, actually. And Skylar and Ben Brown are going to keep going with Late Night Reds. So this Sunday will be still another week off as they kind of get organized. But going forward, we will still have Late Night Reds, and that'll be every Sunday night, same time, 9 o'clock. In the short term, we will be doing the Riverfront Reds Show like we're on right now. It'll come out every Friday morning, just like it does now. For now, Red Leg Roundtable is going to just take a break, and we're going to see how that goes. Frankly, like off seasons seem to be the best time to have a show like that. So maybe we'll push it to off season, or maybe we push it to a week where we're on vacation or something like that. But that's the plan. and also the Bengals show, Owen Timmerding and Caroline. I'm sorry, Caroline, I'm blanking on your last name, but they're Miami students who have done a great job these last 5 or 6 weeks of running with Welcome to the Jungle. So we're gonna keep that going as well.
Well, and I think that again, there'll be more information forthcoming about the Patreon and all that stuff. But from my perspective, the Slack needs, whatever happens with the podcast, the Slack needs to go on forever. I mean, that's the heart of what we do here.
The
in
Slack
some ways
will continue, yes. And listen, let's just say it now. Any of you folks out there, because I'm not like I can't be misinformed on why you might not stay or why you stay. Like, you came probably because of Chad. I understand that. And that's when the Patreon started, probably 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago.
Something like that.
And nobody's going to hold it against you if you decide you don't want to do it anymore. So as soon as things get kind of managed the way that, the transition goes, if anybody wants to, if they've paid for a full year and they want to back out, or if they want to non-renew, that's fine. No hard feelings. What I will say is things like that are going to be what keeps us going, because there are some costs, as far as like even StreamYard, which we use to do the live broadcasts and the video broadcasts and things like that. So, I'd love to keep as many patrons as possible, but we're not going to hold it against anybody if they were here for Chad. And frankly, you mentioned Tim and I had a chat back in like late November, and we're like, wait a minute, we got to keep doing these shows, like we want to keep it alive in hopes that you two could come back and be full-fledged and ready to rock. But it's just not going to work out right now. So.
Well, but you and Tim did an incredible job, and I'm so thrilled for Tim with the opportunity he's gotten here over there with the Locked On Network. But you all kept it alive when this thing probably could have died a while back, and so I'm eternally grateful for that. And yeah, we'll have more information about all that other stuff regarding Patreon, all that coming up here in the next day or two. Seth, should we talk about the current Red? This is a Reds show after all, and we're still going to do some reminiscing about this podcast. But can we talk about the current Reds, or does anyone actually want to do that?
Well, obviously, 1-0 is a familiar score at this point. It's not great. I do say, I said it on Twitter the other day, I don't see what everybody's upset about. The Reds won that series against Texas 14-5 in the aggregate, right? So
exactly.
I don't see what the problem is there. But torpedo bats, right? I mean, torpedo bats and no more runs. I guess that's the game.
Well, our Pythagorean record looks pretty good. Chris, how about we? Because you all sat there quietly, and I've seen a couple of tears roll down your cheeks. I appreciate that. Yeah.
How hard it is to keep Lack and I quiet.
I know, right?
6 minutes or so. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about this first week of the Red season? The big picture thoughts.
Yeah, well, I thought we're going to get that Pythagorean banner to hang up there at Great American Ballpark, right next to the best record in baseball banner. I mean, I don't know, it's early, right? But everything we thought coming into the season looks to be true. Mm-hmm. Ellie De La Cruz is amazing. Matt McLean is a great baseball player. Starting pitching is solid. And they still need an outfielder and a power bat. So, it's kind of playing out exactly like we thought it might. I mean, hopefully they'll get it a little bit better. But, dang, I mean, how many times can you lose 1-0 or just go over? It's tough. I did think, and again, it's early, and I don't like to make sweeping statements. Well, I do, but Terry Francona was supposed to fix the little things and the base running and the dumb defensive mistakes and the nickel and dime nonsense is still there. That they look like a David Bell team, just the same. And we none of us, I think, in this group thought David Bell was a terrible manager, but we thought Francona would be an upgrade, and maybe he is. But the product looks remarkably similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been a couple things here, and then I'll throw it to Bill to talk about the little things because you're exactly right on that. It's like they're exactly what we thought, except more extreme. I mean, I thought the pitching staff was certainly more depth than we've had in a long time. And Singer's a good addition, and they traded a long hair for him. And but the pitch has been better so far. We knew the outfield was going to be a problem. We absolutely knew it was going to be a problem. It's been 10 times worse than anticipated. And some of that's injuries, and some of it's the fact that I have players. But
did you say a long hair?
I was trying to.
Richard Nixon came into the podcast all of a sudden.
One of them long-haired hippie type.
Oh, mercy. Yes, I did say that. I apologize. But
he's channeling his work persona.
I guess. It's my take no prisoners attitude. But the little things, and Terry Francona promised accountability and that those things are going to be fixed. And it's early, right? We're not going to make any great. We are going to make a bunch of grand statements, sweeping statements, but we understand it's early. But Bill, I get the sense you noticed as well that there's not a whole lot of, on the surface, not a lot of difference between this and a David Bell team.
No, I mean, you can't expect this stuff to get fixed overnight. I mean, but. And again, like Chris said, I'm not making any grand statements about anything, but Terry Francona has done zero to impress me thus far. There had been
fire Terry Francona. That's what I'm hearing.
I did not say that. But he's did times where it seems like it was obvious to pinch hit for somebody, and they didn't do it. He lets Espinal go up against right-handed hitters, and I mean, it's been not more. It's been more than one time. So even more, in addition to the small things that we were supposed to get fixed here, the bunts, and maybe that's not him doing the bunts, but I've seen 2 bunts out of Friedel, and both of them have been terrible. And I don't. So far, I am not impressed with the way he manages. It's almost and I hope I'm wrong. But and I thought of this yesterday. Could the Reds front office thought it's cheaper for them to pay Terry Francona $5 million than to go out and pay ball players?
Oh, yes.
And think he was going to make the difference? Because they can fire Francona, and they only got to pay him the end of the contract, which is 3 years for $5 million a year. That's $15 million. If they sign some $40 million a year ball player and he stinks, they're still stuck with $40 million. Candelaria.
So let me address that. Then I'll toss it to Seth here. I think yes, absolutely. We all agree. I think that that's a more low cost way of putting a Band-Aid on a bad situation. But also, I don't want to. I mean, it's legitimately an upgrade. I still believe that at manager. I think he can help this team. It's a way to create a little bit of excitement and sort of distract from. Don't look at the lack of an outfield. We have Terry Francona. He's been in a World's Series.
Yeah, the Mets hired Casey Stengel when they started.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're going back a little bit before the podcast.
Hall of Fame manager too.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Sparky Anderson ain't walking through that door. What do you think, Seth?
Well, 2 things. Number one, where I live and where Chris lives, we're situated, not quite equidistant between Cleveland and Cincinnati. And for years, Terry Francona, his teams would kind of limp out of the gates, and then they would come on like crazy at the end. Case in point, the year that they won, 21 straight games at one point. But also, as an Ohio State basketball fan, what I saw like last year, they fired Holtman and they bring in Jake Diebler. And the only difference between, at this point between Bell and Francona is Diebler was already on the staff last year. So, But a lot of these things, as you put on the Virginia hat, a lot of these things that we saw out of Ohio State basketball this year were very, very reminiscent of Holtman's teams. And it's like, I'm just seeing so much. And you're right, you can't. That's the whole thing. You can't fire the whole roster. So I guess you can fire the one guy. But until they fix some of this, and look, will Austin Hayes and Tyler Stevenson coming back, would that help? I'm sure it would help. But you still have some of the blunders, and they're just so much more magnified when it's early in the season. So I'm still going to give a little more grace, but you're right. If we're going to make hot takes, then right now what I'm seeing doesn't look that different.
They got 7 guys that are getting regular playing time. They have an OPS plus at 54 or below.
Is that good? So what I'm hearing here, though, is they need to fire Terry Francona and hire Thad Matta. Is that what I'm hearing?
That would work.
Thad Matta.
Yeah.
Sean Miller.
Not Sean Miller. He'll just leave again.
Well, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Don't get me started on college coaching talk either. But a part of the Terry Francona hire that I meant to mention earlier as well is that you mentioned Cleveland, but that hey, here's a guy that's won with ownership that doesn't want to spend money.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know. It's lazy Nick Kroll, Bob Castellini nonsense. But I'm not gonna. No more billboards. We're not talking about that tonight. So, anything stick out though to Chris? I guess I'll go back to you. Anything stick out about this team that really surprised you or excited you, or what's the let's be optimistic.
It's early, but I mean the pitching's really impressive. Lodolo's throwing great. Singer was amazing. Once we get Wade Miley back, things will be even better. But no, I mean, and Ellie De La Cruz. I mean, it's been so long. I mean, Joey Votto was Joey Votto, but he's a unique kind of player. It's been so long since we had a guy like that could do such amazing things with such consistency. That pop-up he caught yesterday was just, I mean, that was a staggering play. And he made it like just with such style. And I don't know, like it's a true pleasure to be able to watch him night in, night out. And which I'm doing now. I've resubscribed to the Reds games. I paid my whatever it was, $99 or $79 for the year. So Ellie in the pitching is my surprise.
I think FanDuel should give me a kickback for pushing you across the finish line on this, Chris. I continued to try to get you to jump back on as far as being able to watch the games.
Well, the funny thing was I was all set to pay $99.99 and checked out, and it was only like $75. So I don't know what happened, but that was a good deal, I thought.
That was a Dotson discount.
There you go. Something like that. We with Ellie, something that Bill and Chris and I talked about a lot on the show over the years was, even if the Reds are bad, Joey Votto was still worth tuning in. You didn't want to miss a Joey Votto at bat. Mm-hmm. But it's different with Ellie. I mean, he's still appointment viewing. I still don't want to miss it. But what Votto did that we all admired so much, and what Ellie does is just, I mean, the only player in my lifetime that I can think of that Ellie's even sort of that reminds me of what Ellie is doing is, I mean, obviously Wayne Krenchicki. No, wait a minute. Eric Davis. I mean, Bill, is there anyone else since you've been watching the Reds that, I mean, Eric Davis is the comp, right? For the Reds history.
Yeah, but I don't think Eric Davis was as flashy as Ellie is.
I don't know.
Eric was great. Now, if you talk to Clinker, and I saw Clinker a couple of months in January, we were talking about Eric Davis. My guess is Eric talked a lot more trash than Ellie does. Because apparently Eric was a big trash talker, even when he was a coach. But I never thought Eric Davis was a real flashy player. He was a great player, and I'm not sure that I've ever seen anybody that could do any more than he could. I think he's better all around than Ellie is, because I think he's a better defensive player.
Well, first of all, Dave Parker would have kicked his tail if he would have been flashy in the 80s. But secondly, if you listen to Barry Larkin as he calls games, have you heard the number of times he references Eric Davis basically just making fun of Barry Larkin became a Hall of Famer, and Eric Davis just rode him constantly, it sounds like. It's hilarious. He's talking about hitting with a wet newspaper because he hit it out yesterday.
I think all the Reds are hitting with a wet newspaper right now.
Yeah. Eric Davis is clearly the coolest player in the history of the Cincinnati Reds organization.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Back in the day, you know what, though? I bet Frank Robinson was considered, I mean, other than the fact that you had the racial stuff at the time, I mean, it wasn't as accepted. Or Vada Pinson was a cool dude.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, we're talking about, though, flashing. Maybe Eric Davis wasn't as flashy. But I'll tell you this, think of all the superlatives that go through your head when you watch Ellie De La Cruz.
Mhm.
And Chris, I think, will back me up with this. When we were writing the chapter on Eric Davis for the book, the way people talked about Eric Davis at the time, and specifically in 1987, I mean, Willie Mays literally said, "I'm honored to be compared to Eric Davis." I mean, Chris, we were kind of a little bit surprised, I think, about that, weren't we? I was.
No, yeah. I mean, Eric he could do, like they always say, he could do it all. And those catches he'd make, slamming into a brick wall, the steals. I mean, I think the only guy we've seen with traits like Eric Davis since then, before Ellie, was Billy Hamilton, but he, it was one. It was one tool that was jaw dropping. But Ellie's I think Eric's the comp, and I don't know. I think Ellie's got more drip, as the kids say.
What is that?
I think if Eric Davis was playing now,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he had the wristbands with his picture on it. If you remember those things.
Yeah, if it were the mid '80s, maybe Eric Davis is. It's more accepted now to be a little bit.
But let me ask you guys something. Let me ask you something. Ellie has flash, and he's very, obviously with what he wears and the colors and the things like that. But he doesn't seem like he's that like putting on a show just to do it. Like I still feel like he works harder from what you hear, and he plays pretty hard. I've never seen him loaf. Like, I don't know. I'm pretty impressed by him because he's not just he's a lot of substance, I guess I'd say.
No, I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think you'll see him like kind of, and I don't think this is like showing off or anything. I think he's still like a young player who makes sloppy defensive plays sometimes.
Sure.
Like, and I don't say lackadaisical exactly. It's not what I mean, but no, I don't think he's like a hot dog, to go back to the old school baseball term.
But there's a difference between a hot dog, as they would call it back in the days, and somebody who could back it up. That's my thing with him, which is I'm like, dude, act however you want to act, because you can deliver. I mean, and you are delivering. So.
Yeah. I mean, he clearly worked all off season, right? I mean, the way his selectivity at the plate is markedly better, I think. And this is something Barry Larkin talks about a lot, like him going the opposite way. He's clearly worked on that in the off season and made that a priority to improve his game, is driving the ball to left field as a left-hand hitter. And you can see like that guy's worked all winter to add a thing, like Joey used to do, or like you'd see Michael Jordan do. Like, I'm really good, but I want to add another thing this winter.
Hey, Chad.
Yes. Go ahead. Well, let me say this really quick.
Go ahead.
I think there's legitimately a chance that Ellie De La Cruz can be the best player in baseball this year. I mean, I truly believe that. I don't know if he will be, but I think there's a chance. If he has that thing that Votto had, that Jordan had, that some of the greats had, where he does want to be one of the greats of all time, then the sky's the limit for him. If he does sort of that kind of work ethic, it remains early signs are good, but it remains to be seen. Seth, now you wanted to.
Well, so as we're reminiscing a little bit throughout this show, one of the things that you are noted for is some of your Twitter encounters over the years.
Here we go.
One for the other day made me kind of sit up a little bit, and I thought I'd share it during the game on Monday when they scored runs. You remember that game, 14 runs?
That one game?
Yeah. They were just abusing the Rangers that night. It was awesome. A person named Tom Short, if that's his real name, he tweeted at you, and he said, in all seriousness, could Ellie and McLean be the best double play combo in Reds history by the end of the season? As Matt McLean just stretched a single and a double. Obviously there's
right, your feed's in front of mine.
There's some
Let's
folks.
Go, Ellie.
There's some folks that we could consider, obviously, as far as double play combos go. But that interaction you had, and even people started remarking about your prowess on Twitter. Tell us a little bit of your thoughts on that question, and maybe seriously, and maybe just in jest as well.
Well, the answer's silly. I mean, the question is silly right now in the year of our Lord 2025. I mean, they're not going to be the best double play combination in the history of the Reds. Yeah, they could be. I mean, they look, but it's going to be it's going to take a while for them to. And I'll actually toss this to Bill. People do not remember Joe Morgan and Dave Concepcion at this point. I think, I mean, we're talking about Joe Morgan, who probably is the greatest second baseman in the history of baseball. I mean, it's between him and D'Angelo Jimenez. And so Ellie and McLean, I love this combo. But McLean's got 80 games under his belt or however many. Let's maybe slow your roll a little bit. So I sometimes say dumb things on Twitter to get a reaction. But Bill, I like your historical context here. Yeah, that's right. I stir the pot. I do that occasionally. Got to get that engagement. Get those Elon bucks. But I don't know who else we compare him to. I mean, Brandon Phillips is a great second base. He didn't really have a great shortstop next to him ever, I don't think. Did
Royce Clayton? This is
Royce Clayton.
Erasure.
All-star Felipe Lopez, perhaps. Bill, you want to talk about that combo, that comparison?
No. I mean, one's a Hall of Famer and one's an arguable Hall of Famer, and I know you've changed your mind on Concepcion.
I have.
I still am on the Hall of Very Good, but
still even that.
Yeah, I mean, but Joe Morgan, and I've said this a million times on here, he's the best player I ever saw play every day, and he never had a bad year for the Reds. 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. He was phenomenal every one of those years. Won 2 MVPs. I don't know how many, 5 Gold Gloves, I think. 5 All-Stars, whatever. And in 75 and 76, he was by far the best player in baseball. Not even close.
Bill, is this comparison between McLean and Ellie, who are I love them unconditionally, but that comparison between them being the best double play combo to Morgan and Concepcion, isn't it a little bit like when someone compared Thurman Munson to Johnny Bench to Sparky Anderson? You remember what Sparky Anderson had to say about that?
Yeah, he said he's a really good catcher, but don't embarrass him by comparing him to Johnny Bench.
Yeah, so
I just saw a Sparky thing over the weekend earlier this week. That it was his birthday or it was something. Do you know how old Sparky was when they won the World Series in '76?
He was like 17.
Probably what, 44, something like
42.
that?
He was 42 when they won the World Series in '76. He looked like
crazy.
He looked like he was older than I am.
We're going to win that whole thing, Sugar Bear.
My favorite quote in Reds history.
World's champions again.
We'll be world's champions again, Sugar Bear. All-time favorite quote. Go look up that YouTube video if you haven't seen it. So yeah, that was me. That was me stirring the pot on Twitter, Seth. Thanks for bringing that up.
Well, it happens from time to time, and it'll still be there. Just because some things are changing here doesn't mean you won't be on Twitter anymore.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I need to get off Twitter.
2 hits tonight, boy. They're smoking the ball.
Graham Ashcraft out of the pen here.
There you go.
Second try of the year.
Well, why don't you folks talk a little bit about how the things got started, like a little more in depth, like, how did you all meet and how did Red Leg Nation start?
Well, let me lay the groundwork here, and then I'll let Chris and Bill chime in to correct my faulty memory. But so we all got to know each other in the mid '90s. I went away to college, and they showed me this thing that was just invented called email. It was electronic mail. It was amazing. And I had to go to a building on campus and sign some paperwork to get an address and electronic mail. This is how old I am. And so I'm not sure at the time how I found the Reds listserv, but Bill Lack was working at Miami University at the time and created the Reds listserv. And the kids out there won't really understand what a listserv is probably, but it was revolutionary for us. because you write letters, you write electronic mails, and it goes to everybody on the list. So every email that gets sent into everybody that's subscribed to this list. And so in your email inbox, and we had some great conversations. And so I met a bunch of guys, including Chris Garber and Bill Lack. And I said some dumb things on there and got corrected. I learned more about baseball on that listserv than I had learned ever. I mean, I remember having a week-long conversation defending pitching wins as a way to measure pitchers. And so Bill, maybe you want to talk about that first, because that was the genesis of Red Leg Nation, was the listserv.
Yeah, Ellie just got his third error of the year.
It gets cleaned up though.
Oh gosh, come on, Bill.
Yeah, and I don't even know what the genesis of me starting this was, but they were running. I had a Reds, a Bengals, and a Jimmy Buffett listserv, and I was running them on the listserv at Miami University where I worked at the time. I talked to the people, and they said, "Yeah, that's fine." And like Chad said, you would send your email to this listserv address, and it would spit it out to all the people that were subscribed to this list. And I ran that for, I don't remember what it started, 92, 93, 94, somewhere in there. And I think the Reds list at its highest point probably had 400 or 500 people on it. The Bengals never got much above 200, I don't think. The Buffett one was huge. And it was, I mean, it ran for years, and I kind of shut it down when you started. You came up with the idea in Red Leg Nation, and you talked to me about it, and I was getting close to being done anyway. I'd gone into a new position at work. I didn't have as much time to put into it. But like you said, I learned everything, at least the beginnings of sabermetrics and analytical baseball, from people on that list.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't as vehement as you were about some of the things that we thought back in those days. But I learned a lot from people too. Dave Lowenthal, and some other people whose names escape me at this moment. But
we met some guys that we've gotten to know, and I still have relationships. I mean, we text occasionally, but Matt Malott, the world's greatest Pokey Reese fan,
Yep.
Steve Offenbaker, who's still podcasting, he was on that listserv. So,
yeah.
Chris, what do you remember about the listserv, and then how we transitioned into Red Leg Nation? Because both you and Bill were there at the beginning.
I mean, this is ancient history now, but I mean, it was amazing. Like you guys said, it was a lot of really smart people and open-minded people. They would. I mean, it was the internet, so sparks would fly a little bit here and there, but guys would make their case. It was for the kids, it's a giant group chat, just a long form group chat. And there was a lot of great writers on there. Couple, I think some media people lurked in there. I don't know if
Chris Welch was on there.
That's when we first met Chris Welch.
That's right. Yeah. So you kind of had to bring your A game when you had a take. Because everybody was smart and you didn't want to embarrass yourself, but, you just chopped it up, as they say. And I loved it. I was in San Diego probably when either in law school or San Diego when I first got on there. And you just got so much more in-depth, informed commentary than you would get from your daily, John Fay article or Hal McCoy article, and that you could access the internet.
Well, one of the things I think you mentioned this, Chris, when you were talking to Seth about it. I think it was Seth that you were talking to. I had forgotten that we did a Reds listserv Hall of Fame.
That's right.
I had forgotten all about that.
And it was serious, man. Like, guys were getting upset and campaigning, and who we going to vote for? And there were rules. I mean, it was nerdy. But we were voting it up, and this guy deserves it. This guy doesn't deserve it. Yeah, it was.
You guys are all married, right? You're all married.
Yeah. Somehow we don't talk about that part of it.
30-some years. Why she still puts up with me is anybody's guess.
We're like, we're working.
Chris talks about chopping it up and that you had to bring your A game. And it's true. And it was the internet, but it was not the internet like we know it.
Yeah.
Because what I remember about it is that you had to bring your A game, and you didn't. If you couldn't defend something, you didn't want to say it. But also, when you said something, people weren't, it wasn't name calling. It was like, oh, here's how you're wrong. Here's exactly how you're wrong. And I learned so much. That was my baseball education.
Yeah, that and reading like Rob Nyer and Early Baseball Prospectus for me.
Yeah,
but it all kind of fed in together, and we all kind of made each other smarter, made each other better fans. But you're right. I mean, everybody had your real name. Heck, half of us. I was just looking at some of the old emails, and dudes had their address and their phone number in their email signature. It's like because we were friends. It was Bill had to sign off on you to get in, so.
Well, like you said, no.
Go ahead, Bill.
Like you said, there were rules. I mean, and we weren't allowed. You weren't allowed to name call and all that. And there were times that guys got shown the door if they couldn't abide by the rules.
Yeah,
but it was a lot of fun. And then, but it like everything else, its time came and went. And that's about when you came up with the idea of Red Leg Nation, Chad.
Well, that's when blogging became a big thing. And this was 2005 that we started. Gosh, 2 decades ago, we started Red Leg Nation, and it was basically me and Chris and Bill, and then Jason Lennon came on early on. I'm not sure who. I'm trying to remember who all was with us early on.
Matt was on board.
Matt wrote a little bit. I don't know if Steve Price did.
Yeah, Steve Price was on board. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we wanted a place just to talk about the Reds. Because we love the listserv, and that thing kind of grew like we did not expect. Became a part of the ESPN network there for a little while, and but it was all the stuff we were talking about on the listserv, essentially, and so a couple years after that started to transition into the podcast. And Seth, I hope you're taking notes about all this. This is the history of the podcast you're inheriting here, right? This is it's important stuff.
It'll be a test.
Yeah, so. The podcast came out because podcasting was a brand new thing, and those early podcasts are still available in the archives, and you do not want to listen to them. but early on, they were occasionally whenever we get time to record, we had something to talk about. The second episode was Bill and I. We went to the Reds Hall of Fame.
Was that the second one?
I think that was the very second one. Yeah, and
that was a good interview.
That was a great interview. Greg Rhodes. And the Reds Hall of Fame had just opened. I mean, this was a new thing at that time, and really good conversation about Reds history in the Hall of Fame. And then shortly after that, we started this. What do we call it when we had our minor leaguers that we were following? Spotlight players. We developed a relationship, or Bill really developed relationships with Reds minor leaguers. We kind of followed. He mentioned Matt Klinker earlier, but there were a number of them that we kind of followed along, and so. The podcast was used.
Devin was probably our most successful one.
Yeah. And so it became a place for us to do interviews. It was a little bit later before we really decided to lean in and do it every single week. When I decided to have a time, that I had the time to do that. But early on, it was when we had those interviews, and then it was a way for me to talk with Chris and Bill. Just because I like talking to my buddies about Reds baseball, and then Bill did a bunch with sort of some Reds legends over the years as well, right?
I think my first interview was with Jay Bruce.
Oh, that's right, down in Dayton.
Yeah,
right. Wasn't it in Dayton?
I think, if I remember right, I had to transcribe it, and it ended up being a print interview. I went and talked to him, and then typed it in and put it up.
That's right.
I think the first couple, even the first couple of ones with Chris Welch may have been that way also. But they weren't audio, they were written.
Hold on one moment. Chris has some breaking news here for us.
The Reds are the first team since 1920, second team since 1920, to lose 3 consecutive losses by a score of 1-0.
What a time to be alive.
There you have it.
Giving me, this is what I'm inheriting. Come on.
Well, look, yours, Seth, baby.
If I can digress for a minute, the the month that Chad and I debuted the book the first time, the Reds went 3-18 after we launched the Reds book. So they're
the
not
worst
great
time
for
ever to launch.
Yeah, they're not great for business.
Why did you do this second printing? Why?
Oh, I know, right? So anyway, that's I don't know, Bill. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to say. I kind of interrupted you there,
But
but
we have had some, and Seth is talked to some really guys that have been really interesting too. But the one with Maloney I thought was really good.
Jim Maloney,
The one with Fred Norman I thought was really good. Tom Browning was a really good interview. Chris Welsh is always a joy to have on board and I don't think Chris Welsh has ever told us no.
We need to get Chris back, Seth. We need to talk about that because Chris came on every year there for a while, and we had Barry Larkin. That was a big one for us. Jason Linden went down to Louisville and interviewed Barry Larkin one year when he was down there working with players. That was a big one. I wish Jason were with us.
We took credit for Devin winning minor league player of the year because he came on and then had the great year. So then I told him, well, you got to come on again, so you'll have another great year. So we took full credit for him being minor league player of the year.
Yeah. So at some point it became a thing we decided to do every week. And I'm so grateful to Chris and to Bill for just giving me, because at that time, this wasn't a money maker. I was losing money every month on this thing. And I was doing it just because I love the Reds and I like talking to my friends, but Chris and Bill would join me. We've mentioned Jason a few times during that time. It was just a chance to get together and talk about the Reds. And I don't know, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Later on, Nate came on board, and I enjoyed talking to my brother, about the Reds because he and I had not had a chance to do that. He'd been out of the country for a while, and so that's where we are. I just can't believe we are this many episodes in and still going. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And again, when the question was asked, would I take it over and would I keep it going? I had to think about it quite a bit, but I will tell you just the fact that you put so much into it. And honestly, I got wind of it a little before I got to talk to you, Chad, and I really wanted to hear what you had to say about it because it's just you put so much into this, and I don't want to ever disrespect that, and I don't want to have it be like as if I think that, again, people that came for you that don't want to be around the Patreon anymore, I totally understand. I've listened to podcasts where the guy I was there for left, and it's just not the same anymore. So I totally understand. But we're going to try to have you back as often as possible. And maybe there's a time down the road where you can, come back in and be the key to everything again.
Well, let me say something about that if I could really quickly, Seth. It was a pretty big burden for a long time to try to do this every week. Especially when I was losing money on the proposition. My wife was like, every Thursday night, what are you doing? You're away from your family every Thursday night. And I did it initially because I really genuinely enjoyed talking to Chris and talking to Bill and talking to Jason, who were, on here. They've been on here more than Chris and Bill have been on more than anyone other than me. And I really, truly enjoyed it. And then the Slack thing came about and the viewer mail. And then I was like, oh, wow, this community is pretty fun. There have probably been 10 times over the years when I said, I can't do this anymore. I have a demanding job. I have kids. I have a family that I have to, that has to take priority. And somehow it kept going, but mostly because of Chris and Bill and then the community that built up around it. I just I'm not sure I want to give it up. And to my wife's credit, she was like, she said it tonight. You really don't want to give this up, do you? I was like, well, I have to. I can't do it. But she's been very supportive. So I was very grateful, Seth, when you agreed to keep it going, and we'll see what it looks like going forward. But I was ready for it to end. I was ready to make that decision. I have to make tough decisions all the time. But I'm glad that that's not the decision here, and that there's a future here. And yes, I do want to be involved as much as I can going forward.
All right. Do you have a box of tissues handy?
Wait a minute. First, Before we, I hear it. Viewer mail's coming. No, and I'm not ready. Chris and Bill, can I ask Chris and Bill anything you want to say? Just kind of wrap up the podcast era that we're leaving, but moving on to the next one.
No, man. I mean, I same as you. I just like talking to my friends, and that's what this is for me. So I enjoy it. I'll keep doing it as long as you guys will have me. I don't know who would listen to me, but I'll talk.
Yeah,
Bill,
I've enjoyed it too, and you know, I'm as long as it, you know, they want me, and you know, they want an old guy shaking his fist at the sky, because that's what I'm good at. I'm happy to help out when I can, but I feel the same as both of you guys. It's a chance to sit down with your friends who you don't get to see every day, and you know, spend a few minutes with and give them a little crap and cut up and talk some Reds baseball. And it's kind of like sitting in a bar. You know, it's like kind of like sitting in a saloon having a beer with your buddies.
Yeah.
All right,
and even before I started doing the shows, getting to be on the shows, I felt like I knew each and every one of you three. And I still, honestly, the three of you, I haven't met you in person yet. But I do feel like Chris and I have exchanged interactions quite a bit over the years, and he hooked me up with, I got to take my son to a Bengals game. I purchased a game from him when he couldn't go, and I really appreciated that. My son got to go to his first Bengals game. But all right, so I put out the bat signal. I didn't let loose what exactly is happening, but I said that Chad was going to be alongside, and if anybody wanted to throw some flowers your way, then they could do so. And I got an overwhelming response. So we're going to start with Joey Gaditza from
Canada, baby. Our buddy from Canada.
And Joey always starts with, cheers, gang. As I've mentioned, living where I do, I have no additional Reds fans to share my fandom. When I first discovered this community, Chad welcomed me with open arms. The joke Canada was born, and I appreciate everything he's meant to me in this group. Chad Dotson, the GOAT. I also like to use the phrase, hope is not a strategy. I do that all the time too, Joey. Not just for baseball anymore either. Ha ha. Thanks for everything, Chad. Rex Scott. He says, I am grateful to Chad for sparking my interest in joining our Patreon community through his engaging podcasts. Also, I love the Big 50 and treasure the copy I got when I signed on. Best wishes to Chad, Nate, and their families. They have both brought joy and fellowship into our lives. And if you want to, in between these, say anything, you're welcome to.
Let me just say something quickly. That does mean a lot to me because for so many years we did this without knowing who was listening, and we've got to meet some great people, Joey and Rex. But also, I haven't talked about Nate much here. Just for a second. Nate came on board when this thing was just about to had run its course. I wasn't sure I had enough time to do it full time, and Nate jumped on, and we kept going because I just enjoyed talking to my youngest brother so much, and then it became something different, but also something fun. So I do want to make. I feel like I haven't given Nate enough of a shout out here because Nate's the best, but. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to say much about each of these because I'm getting a little emotional here, a little verklempt, as they say back in our day.
All right, let me divert us just for a second. Mike Perry came with something about you, but he also asked this question, and we kind of touched on it a little bit. But he said, under David Bell, the Reds often got off to rough starts. It's still early, but this trend appears to be continuing under Francona. Why do you think the Reds struggle so much at the beginning of the season?
Because we can't have nice things. That's my answer. Chris, Bill, you'll have a different answer.
I think it's because they don't hit enough in the preseason.
There you go.
They need to have more two-a-days.
Yeah.
I think it's because they spring train in Arizona instead of Florida.
There we go. Let's get back
where
to
it all
Florida.
went. It left Sarasota. It all went to hell.
Okay. All right. So Mike also says, though, Chad Dotson is the best. During my college years, I was so busy. I had trouble following any hobbies. Chad via Red Leg Nation is what got me back into the Reds after graduation. Chad.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He says, Chad, I forgive you for spelling my name wrong, when you signed the Big 50.
Oh no, dude!
No.
Oh,
no.
email me. I got to get you a new copy.
What's his
Okay.
name? What was his name?
His name is Mike Perry.
I misspelled Mike,
Wow.
I guess. Yikes!
I had to look and see, is it P-A-R-R?
It's UVA and Georgetown Law there.
There we go. That's that Virginia public school education for you there.
You got in such a hurry. Well, hey, this one's going to be close to your heart. Joe Farsing says, Chad, may the spirit of Luis Alberto Bonilla always guide you on your path.
I love it. Luis Alberto. I don't know how that became a thing here, but anyway.
I remember it vividly. Andrew Williams said, the entire reason I'm here is because another Chad from Wise, Virginia, referred my dad and I to Red Leg Nation years ago. Red Leg Nation Radio quickly became my favorite podcast. And tonight, as we go in for a few day-long hospital stay to welcome our son, hey, mazel, mazel, good things there. They're going to welcome his son into the world. None other than the Big 50 is in tow as my reading material. Should the first thing I ever read to him be the Adam Dunn chapter?
Perfect.
Absolutely. Young Chadwick will be start his life out very well if you do that. Because I presume they're naming him after me.
Oh, I was thinking it was Lisa Victo. Well, I want to name my second son Jay because my first son was Joey. Jay Bruce was still on the team.
There we go.
Joey Jay, the pitcher. So all tied together. My wife did not agree. All right. I pulled the wool over her eyes by naming him Joey after Mr. Votto, and she didn't really seem to realize it apparently. Sid Price says, Chad and his podcast introduced me to some amazing friends, and it has helped me get through some really hard times in my life. I'm so incredibly grateful for what he has built, and I'm sad to see him and Nate go, but I'm proud of what they have done. And also pointed out, being a trans woman in a sports space is hard, and y'all have accepted me with open arms. So Sid is a mainstay these last couple of years, that's for sure.
I believe Sid is a proud Miamisburg native like me. So all the better.
There you go.
There we go.
What was your high school mascot?
The Vikings.
The Vikings. That's right. That's right. All right. Kevin Lynch. They're still coming. Kevin Lynch says, I found the Riverfront the summer of 2020. There was so little we could do then because of COVID, but when baseball came back, I started listening to Chad and falling back in love with baseball for the first time in years. It was maybe my favorite Red season in a weird way. My first interaction with Chad in the Riverfront was when he asked on X, what movie scene do you wish was real life that you were there for? When he embraced my answer of the scene in Teen Wolf when Michael J. Fox turns into the wolf at a basketball game.
There we go.
Everyone freaked out, but then he showed the crowd that he could now dunk, and everyone was instantly okay with it. I knew I found my people. And he said, like others have said, I really enjoyed this group, and because of the Riverfront, I got to meet Tim Daniel and eventually Skylar Webker to start our own show about my first love, basketball. I hope one day we can build half as good of a community that the Dotsons and crew have here. And so that's obviously their Cavs show. Tim Daniel.
I'm still thinking about Michael J. Fox dunking. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's amazing.
I think the Cavs could use a little bit of that, don't you think?
Oh, man.
All right. Tim Daniel said, now, Tim, as you mentioned, and listen, Tim's got a lot of things going on in his life with a young daughter and a wife and a job and some other things. And Tim was always willing to answer the call when I had something to ask him about, especially, when I first got onto the Riverfront, to even just technical things and things like that. So Tim, we appreciate you. And we're excited for what you're doing now over at Locked On, even though you're dead to us, but that's Tim said, Chad and Nate brought me into the Riverfront to host my show, and it was the best thing to happen to me. Not only did I get one of my best friends, Ben Brown, to be my co-host, but working hand in hand with Chad and Nate helped me lean more into my creativity and find my voice as a host. Because of this group, I was able to find a great community, and for some reason, those two trusted me to be a leader of the establishment, but I guess it worked out. Now they're still stuck with me in a daily group text with Carlos Guevara, but I'm eternally grateful to have them as friends the rest of my life.
Let me say about Tim. Tim stepped up when Nate and I were. I cannot say enough about Tim, and I've told him this, but I'm on Team Tim Daniel forever. And yes, that group text is going to keep going, but we got to get Carlos Guevara out of the text somehow. But anyway, I wanted to say that.
I know he got mad at you for not using them in your immaculate grid the other day. So
he did get mad at me, and also, he'll never let me forget. So when Nate was getting ready to get married, he had his bachelor party in Austin, Texas, and of course Carlos lives in Texas. And I said, "Hey, when we get down there, I'll text you. We'll get together." And then I didn't text him. I completely forgot, and he's still upset. So I'm going to San Antonio in a couple of months. And let me tell you something. I'm texting Carlos. We're getting together. Anyway.
All right, we got a few more here. Dwight Kelly said, Chad is definitely the reason I am here. Several years ago, when I wanted to dig into smarter analysis, I found Red Leg Nation Radio. I was new on Twitter, and Chad was friendly and approachable. Many media and podcasting people were not. Glad he is still on X and Substack. He and Nate will be sincerely missed here. And here's one from James Urban, and I don't know if you're going to like this one. He said,
"Is this the elderly James Urban?"
You need to tell us how that started. But he says, "Wait, am I supposed to say something nice about Chad and Nate? Those two are the worst. They call me old."
I don't know how that began, but at some point that became a running gag.
Yeah, it did. And you rode that until here.
Oh, listen, any kind of dumb gag that I can lean into, I'll ride it into the ground. You know that.
Yeah, this guy talked about Lisa Verano Bonita for 16 years.
He pitched for the Reds for like a month.
Right.
Joe Farsing came back and said, I listened to Red Leg Nation Radio for Jason Linden. I was bait and switched.
Yeah, well, that's probably true.
All right. So that's the tributes for the night. But Branch Brown came in with a viewer mail. He said, what's worse than wasting pitching? My answer, stepping on something wet with just socks on in the dark.
I don't have a better answer than that.
There's a great comment down thread there that says Branch Brown sleeps in socks.
Right. He said, Branch sleeps in socks only. Add that to the list of things I didn't want to know. That's Brandon.
That's TMI there.
Well, I told you, he told Jeff Carr he listens to him in the shower. So
with socks.
All right. That's viewer mail. Real quick, I listened to the Tony Kornheiser show for many, many years and still do. And quite often someone writes in and talks about how Tony through the show helped him get through something, and whether it be the passing of a loved one or a tough time in the hospital or something like that. And Chad, I'd put you up there right there with Tony as far as the number of times I've heard somebody comment that, hey, I was having a tough time and I just love that I could count on listening to the show every week. So that's real. That's not joking around. That's amazing stuff. And the money you spent to keep this thing going, you should find it well spent money, because there's plenty of people like that.
Well, I guess I do appreciate that, Seth, more than you realize, and probably the most grateful. I'm so grateful for the number of people that reached out and said, you know what, Friday mornings I get up and do whatever, and you're there, and I feel like I got to know you, and it's a dumb little podcast that we did to talk to my friends, and the fact that it connected with a bunch of people. And it's still connecting with a bunch of people. I've been mostly absent for a little while, but the Patreon crew has still been there, and this community has continued to go. And again, I think that Tim Daniels certainly and Seth, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun, and my hope is that at some point I have more ability to re-engage, because it's been a great time. It's really been a great time. Chris,
Well,
Bill, do you want anything you want to say before we wrap up here?
I think you're a jerk.
Yes, it's true.
And always
Bill-
have.
Oh, Bill.
Man.
God bless him.
I've held it in for 30 years. I just couldn't hold it in anymore.
Bill will tell it like it is. That's a fact.
You made him cancel the listserv so you could start a blog. What did you expect him to say after all these years?
Man, blogging was the height of the internet. It never got
fair
any
enough.
better. It only got worse.
It's true.
Yeah. No, because even then it was people kind of getting to know each other.
Yeah. Chris, anything else you want to say about the end of a current era?
It's been a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I really like coming up here on Thursday nights and closing the door off from everybody and enjoying a couple of drinks and talking to you guys. So I look forward to doing as much as we can.
Yeah, it's not the end. It's not the end. Absolutely not. We're passing the torch. It's a new era, but I'm excited. I think it could be better than ever. Seth, final thoughts from you?
Well, I want to.
Well, not final thoughts. You're going to have plenty of thoughts going forward.
That's right. That's right. So once again, stay tuned. Not this coming Sunday, not the 6th, but on the 13th of April, Skylar Webker and Ben Brown will relaunch Late Night Reds. So we'll have that, and then come back every Friday for this show. It's still going to keep going with some of the folks on this screen. If you're watching us on YouTube, you'll see some of these same folks on a weekly basis, and I do look forward to it, and I'm really excited to see what we can do. And honestly, if we can just keep on chugging. I picture a retired Chad Dotson asking me if we can do this almost daily, because he just wants to talk. So perhaps we can get that done here in a little bit, because you're so much older than I am. So maybe that could happen. But I have one more thing to say, because I want you to take us out the way you know how. But I heard a name today, and I had to look it up, and it is real, and he did play for the Reds. So for my part of this episode, for Buttercup Dickerson. So long, everybody.
Oh, I love it. Well, I'm gonna have to give mine my ending here. Buttercup Dickerson. I never used that one. I don't know about that. Listen, it's been a blast, but it's not over. This is it's a new era, and my goal is at some point to be able to free up some time to get back here as much as I can, because I do love this community. For Bill Lack, for Chris Garber, for Seth Shaner, for Adam Dunn, and for Luis Alberto Bonilla. This is Chad Dotson saying, so long, everyone.